Good, thank you. You're welcome. We're going to read a little bit from Makers of the Modern Mind. Yeah, I did, thank you. I just started a video. I'm going to read a little bit from this book. I did, yes. I got a lot of those messages. So we've iterated a lot and reiterated a lot what we believe and why we believe it. And the angry dead mother in us comes out sometimes. We're very aware. You can call it schizophrenic if you want, talking in the third person. Some call it, talking in tongue or something. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different things for that, but we're very aware. And people know we joke a lot. We're part-time comedians as a hobby. Yeah. Well, it's frustrating when you see sarcasm being taken at that rate, depending on who it comes from. You can understand in some situations. Yeah, for example, if I was a politician or something, then that'd be another thing. Well, if that were the case, they probably would have looked at the facts and concerns, and I wouldn't be angry and upset, right? Yeah, that's true. Well, true. It's still upsetting. And I guess there wouldn't be a lot of anger and begging people to wake up and look at the facts and concerns and stop ignoring it. Well, if they weren't ignoring it, and they hadn't been ignoring it for years and doing what they've been doing for years, and the previous concerns hadn't already been there, very frightening when you actually go back and take a look. And you can go all the way back to the 90s if you want, or even the 80s. Keep going. But we specifically focus 2006 to now, just for generalization purposes, but it is good. A lot of people do like to go back in reference to the late 90s and 9/11 because there are a lot of correlations there with the administrations and stuff they've been kind of exposing. The House of Cards crumbling, has some call it. I suppose you could put a lot of analytic play there. Yeah, I was asked that, and for the sake of those who have to listen, I apologize. They said for their own mental health, may I please tone it down in the mornings, especially when the dead mother in me gets angry and tells people. Right, so we won't go there. All right, I agree. For the sake of humanity, I'll do that for you. And for me. And the entire. There are people dying. Got it. Thank you. You're welcome. We're going to read part of the introduction here. The dizzy pace at which the world has progressed in all branches of applied learning this past century has given rise to a disturbing paradox. This was written in the 30s, I believe. 1949. Makers of the Modern Mind, Science and Culture Series, Joseph Hussein, S.J. Ph.D., General Editor. this was given or donated by Miss Ann P. Oates. You're an oak. The dizzy pace at which the world has progressed in all branches of applied learning this past century has given rise to a disturbing paradox. Never before in history have men known so much about so many things, and never have they been so confused on such basic questions as whether the world is what it seems, or even whether they have minds. As scholars probe more deeply into the secrets of nature and encompass ever wider fields of knowledge, they find it necessary to specialize more and more exclusively on smaller and smaller areas of knowledge. Thus, collectively, they have pushed back the frontiers of knowledge and multiplied many times over the sum of facts known by mankind. But in the process, each specialist has necessarily closed his mind to everything except his own little specialty. He lets the rest of the world go by. 200 years ago, for example, the average physician did not have to profound a knowledge of medicine. But he understood other aspects of life well enough to act as friend and counselor to his patients on 100 various problems. A century ago, doctors tended to see all human problems in terms of psychological upsets because they had learned more about medicine and had closed their minds to the intricacies of agriculture, finance, and human relationships. Today, as a result of increased specialization, the heart specialist tends to see every human disorder in terms of cardiac disturbances, and the psychiatrist sees the same illnesses in terms of neurosis. Need some water. In days gone by, to make another example, the competent historian knew the general story of man's past fairly well. Today, no historian is considered respectable unless he has specialized in the events of a single decade within a single century. About the rest of history, he may be as ignorant as the physician or the lawyer, so it necessarily is, of course, in all branches of learning, because there are only 24 hours in the day and about 20,000 days in a lifetime. Such specialization as we have in the modern world can be accomplished only by sacrificing wide knowledge for deep learning in a tiny area. Modern scholars therefore remind one that little jingle most of us learned as children. It was 6 men of Indostan, to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind. Each man, the fable runs on, took hold of the elephant at a different place, and each concluded his limited experience what sort of animal this wondrous elephant was. One bumped against its side, so he decided the elephant is very much like a wall. Another took hold of its tusk and therefore concluded that it was very like a sphere. A third thought the elephant was similar to a snake because he had grabbed its squirming trunk. A fourth, who clasped it by its knee, thought it very like a tree. Another felt its ear and thought it like a fan, and the 6th blind man, grabbing its tail, concluded it was very like a rope. And so the men of Indostan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion, exceeding stiff and strong. Though each day was partly in the right, all were in the wrong. The 2 important points behind this little jingle are obvious. In the first place, the 6 men of Indostan argued loud and long about an animal none of them had ever seen. Each had, so to speak, become a specialist on one part of the elephant's anatomy. Each was therefore competent to talk with his specialty, but none was qualified to generalize correctly about the elephant as an animal. Each was therefore partly right, but all were wrong, because none of the men could step back a few paces to see the whole elephant. The 6 fields of specialization created confusion about the animal as a whole. But there is still a 7th man, so horrified at the findings of the blind men in their acrimonious debate, that he is content to see the elephant from a distance. His vision remains intact, but he learns little that is exact about the elephant. Closer inspection of the contemporary mind reveals how men today are faced with the dilemma of the 7 men on the elephant, of giving up specialization to preserve sanctity, or giving up a rounded knowledge of things human to learn ever more about smaller areas of knowledge. For closer inspection reveals how striking is the paradox between the modern mind's wonderful accomplishments and its awful shortcomings. Freedom of controversy and tolerance of almost any opinion are accorded to all people, at least in this country. This is a possession which we of the modern world are likely to take for granted, without reflecting how it was won by bitter struggle through the long years of modern history. It is a priceless heritage through which man can arrive at truth more surely and more readily in any other way. You're welcome. Thank you. We're doing gentle in and out the nose. We go fast, but breathe slow. Try to breathe in really slow for about 10 seconds while you do this fast. If you want to. And then breathe out for 10 seconds really slow, or 11 or 12 seconds. Sometimes it's good to expel a little bit more than you inhale. And go. Yeah, I got a little bit of an itchy throat from all the pollen, but not too bad. Yeah, it's extra yellow today.